I've never been one of the cool kids, and I've never been one of those vain people that thought my stuff doesn't stink, that I was something hot. I was the bomb. Never really did. But I've got friends who have, and I got a couple friends that I've had conversations with them lately where they've privately said to me, man, I'm just, I guess I'm not hip or cool anymore. If you're baffled by TikTok or unfamiliar with Taylor Swift's latest music, don't worry, you're not the only one. Because 1 in 2 Americans feels out of touch, is what they call it, with what's cool or what's hot, what's trending, what's the vibe. An online poll examined how confident Americans feel when it comes to keeping up with popular culture, and found that 49% feel they are out of touch overall. So I pose the question to you. What occurred in your life? When was it? What age was it? What happened where you walked away and went, maybe I'm not as cool as I thought I was. Maybe I'm not as hip as I thought I was. I had a moment like that last year. My daughters, my name is Jeff. It's West Side Jeff. My daughters, 28 and 24, are avid Lululemon fans. And I didn't know until 2 years ago, I think it was, that Lulu sells men's clothes, men's pants. And I've bought a lot of Lulu pants for my daughters and my wife at $125 a pair over several years, and they love them. And so the conversation with my daughter, who I would say is hip, who's cool, who's on top of things, she's on top of culture. She schooled me on Lulu selling men's pants. So for the heck of it, one day I decided to stop into Lulu and kind of sheepishly pulled my collar up over top of pulled my collar up and kind of trying to go incognito, sunglasses on, a hat on. And so I wasn't outed in a Lululemon store with a bunch of women and a bunch of girls. I walked over and talked to one of the clerks and said, I understand they have men's pants, and asked her about them. And Lulu pants, their most popular pant for men is ABC pants. Literally, they have a tag on them that says ABC. And you go read through that, and I kid you not, ABC stands for anti-ball crusher. Yes, they truly have them. Lululemon has ABC pants for men. So I thought, you know what? I bought a lot of these for the girls. I got to try these things on, and I got to try a pair. So I did. I bought a pair a year and a half ago, put them on. I got to tell you, I love them. They just fit right. They feel right. And not because of the brand name, and not because they're $140 a pair. They just feel right. They just fit. They feel right. They look good. They hold up well. They don't lose their color when you wash them. So I wore them, and my daughter, first time she saw me with them on, nothing gets by her. She looked at me and said, "Those are Lulu pants, aren't they?" I'm like, "Well, yes, they are." And I felt like I had a little something with me, if you know what I mean. But there are folks that there's a moment in life where you feel the opposite, where you feel you lost your cool factor. What is it? What happened? What was that moment that you went, huh? And you walked away and went, maybe I don't have that cool factor anymore. 800-288-9227 is my number. I want to know from you, what was that moment you lost your coolness? What happened? What made you lose it? What was that moment? Tell me the story about losing your coolness that occurred to you that maybe you're not as cool as you thought you were. 800-288-9227. That's 800-288-WBAP. So again, the online poll examined how confident Americans feel when it comes to keeping up with popular culture. and found that 49% feel they are out of touch overall. And the inevitable age that will hit, it's inevitable you hit a moment in your life where it occurs to you that maybe I'm not as cool as I thought I was. It's going to happen. If it hadn't happened to you, it will. But what age does that happen? So the story goes on, this research piece goes on to say the inevitable age that will hit where the world of coolness no longer speaks to us, it can vary, but the consensus showed that you can generally expect that somewhere around the age of 39. They pinpointed it. 39 is about that age where you kind of lose your cool factor, the cultureness, right? The cool culture. The survey asked respondents to rate themselves on how up-to-date they felt with the latest trends and what's deemed cool in categories from food and music to arts, technology, and the latest slang. Now, when it comes to feeling in touch, Americans are most confident when it comes to the food world, 72%. 72% of people surveyed said they're really in touch. They're really cool, the cool factor. They got the hip factor going on food. It's because we go out to eat a lot. We dine a lot. 60% felt they were across they felt pretty cool and up to date on music. 6 in 10 Americans feel similarly in the know when it comes to social media. That's 58%. In movies, within the movie industry, 55% said staying up to date with the latest movies, and cool factor and culture, 55%. And 49% of us say that we're pretty up to date on what's going on technology-wise. Feel very confident about that. Now, the same can't be said when it comes to knowing modern slang. Now, the lowest sector for people to feel truly confident in being up to date was modern slang. 40% felt out of touch. So the top areas that Americans feel in touch with culture are food, music, social media, movies, and tech. And the areas where they're not in touch, slang, celebrities, the arts, fashion, and literature. 2/3 of people, 67%, felt that a person's taste can be improved, while 17% felt the opposite, and that our taste is much more inherent. So my question to you is, what age did it hit you? They say the average age is 39. What age did it hit you where you woke up and went, maybe I'm not as cool as I thought I was. I may not have that cool factor, the culture moments. I may not be on touch of it. People around me are talking things that I'm not in touch with. And what was that moment that had happened to you? 800-288-9227 is the phone number. 800-288-WBAP. My name is Jeff. It's Westside Jeff, sitting in for Chris Crock on News Talk 820 WBAP and now on FM at 93.3. So I saw a story. Excuse me. Westside Jeff is the name in for Chris Crock. Saw a story about what age it is that we hit that you all of a sudden realize you're not cool anymore. And that age is pinpointed right at 39. So if you're baffled by TikTok or unfamiliar with Taylor Swift's latest music, she dropped an album not long ago, or new music. Don't need to worry, because I'm in your boat, man. 1 in 2 Americans feels out of touch with what's cool. An online poll examined how confident Americans are when it comes to keeping up with popular culture, with all the things in pop culture. And I'm talking about things like fashion, music, eats, food, tech, social media, movies. And the median age, or the generally the average age where someone realizes they're not cool, they don't have the cool factor when it comes to pop culture, is the age of 39. I was never really the coolest of cool. I really never was. So it didn't matter to me through that age group. Heck, by 39, I was married with kids. Coolness was when I was in my 20s, I was single. Now, the average age of really feeling uncool for all 2,000 people in a survey polled was 39. The survey asked respondents to rate themselves on how up to date they felt with the latest trends and what's deemed, what they perceive, what's cool to them, what categories. What are the topics that you got to know a little more about to feel cool? Love to hear your thoughts on this. 800-288-9227. At what age did it hit you? Was there a specific age you went, maybe I'm not as cool as I was hoping or thinking? Because I'm not up to speed on that musical artist. I don't listen to Kendrick Lamar. I'm not a Kendrick Lamar fan, but I don't know who he is. Shimbuzi, another one of those. What about what are the topics that pop culture you struggle with? So I'd love to hear your story. 800-288-9227, 800-288-WBAP. You can also hit me up on social media at Westside Jeff. Now, as the story goes, the top areas Americans feel in touch with are food, music, social media, movies, and tech. And the top areas Americans feel out of touch with are number 1, slang, number 2, celebrities, number 3, the arts, number 4, fashion, and number 5, literature. Surprisingly, knowledge of celebrities was the second most common thing for people to lose track of. 1 in 3 respondents, 35% of them, say they lost grip on who's who when it comes to celebrities. And trying to hold your own at the Met, impress your local book club, or wow people with your stylish wardrobe is a distant dream for a third of Americans, with the arts 34%, literature 32%, and fashion 32%. So the question for you is, what moment did you realize maybe you're not as cool as you thought you were? 800-288-WBAP. 800-288-9227. The name is Jeff, Westside Jeff, and for Chris Crock. This is Labor Day weekend, and this is a time of the year where a lot of sports are kicking in gear. You've got the start of college football season really kicking off this weekend. High school football generally kicked off last weekend. You got the NFL games starting a week from tonight. You got the NHL kicking in gear in a couple weeks. The NBA fires back up in another month or so. So we're at a time where sport is about ready to kick in. So I got to ask you, I don't go to a ton of games, but I've been to a lot of games in my lifetime at various different places. What are the best sports stadiums, the best sports stadium experiences you've ever had? And what's the worst? I'd like to hear what you have to say. I've been to a lot of stadiums. I've been to a couple NHL facilities. I've been to a couple college basketball arenas. I've been to a couple high school places. I've never been in Dallas AT&T Stadium where the Cowboys play. I've been to a couple ballparks. I've been to several college football stadiums. I can tell you I was born and raised up in Columbus, Ohio. I've been to Ohio Stadium, the Horseshoe, many a times. That is a horrible experience. It's iconic because it's the Horseshoe. If you're a college football fan, you know Notre Dame Stadium. You know the Coliseum where USC plays. You know the Big House in Michigan. You know Ohio State's Horseshoe. The best experience I've had in college football was at Tennessee, Knoxville, Neyland Stadium. I've been there twice. Went last year to watch Georgia play and 3 years ago to watch Georgia play. It was a wonderful experience. I'll tell you about that in about 60 seconds, but I got to ask you, what are some of the better experiences you've had in stadiums and facilities, whether it be high school, college, basketball, football, NFL, NBA, NHL? What are the stadiums that stick out to you and why? 800-288-9227, 800-288-WBAP. There's good ones, there's bad ones. My bad one, Ohio Stadium. I remember one of the last games I went to up in Columbus at Ohio Stadium was probably about 10 years ago. It's been a while, before COVID. And I took a very good friend of mine. We had really good seats, sat probably 15 rows up from the field, right behind the visitors' bench. There was nobody in the stadium. That they didn't have concession people selling sodas and popcorn and stuff in the stadium, so you had to get up and go get it. And you had to get up, go down your seat underneath the stadium, stand in line. We stood in line. I'm a Diet Coke guy, got Diet Coke and a soft pretzel. We stood in line that was longer than any line I can remember at any stadium and missed an entire quarter of football at Ohio Stadium. That was a horrible experience. It's not a great fan experience. I've been to the Big House several times in Michigan for games. That is a much better experience than Ohio Stadium. The Big House in Ann Arbor. Phenomenal experience. But the best for me was Neyland Stadium. That's Knoxville, where University of Tennessee Volunteers play. I'll tell you about that after the bottom of the hour news. Coming up in about 5 minutes, we got Sean Allen in the newsroom with an update on what's going on with the Paxton lawsuit and an update on the Harris interview tonight on CNN. On the other side of that, I want to open the phones and I want to hear from you. What are the stadiums you've been to, whether it be NHL stadiums, NBA stadiums, not just here in Dallas, but around the country, because Dallas is a melting pot of the country. What are the places you've been to that stick out in your mind as wonderful experiences? And what made it a great experience? Was it the seating? Was it the layout? Was it the entertainment? Was it the food? Was it access to parking, bathrooms? What was it that stuck out to you at that stadium, at that facility for a sporting event? The phone number is 800-288-WBAP, 800-288-9227. On the other side of the news, I'll tell you why Neyland Stadium in Knoxville was a really good experience. And what I'm going to tell you is going to surprise you. Because if they did this up in Big Ten country, better yet, I've never seen it done in Big Ten country. They couldn't pull it off up there. I'll tell you what it is. And about 6 minutes after the news, my name's Jeff, Westside Jeff, and for Chris Crocker, News Talk 820, WBAP, and now on FM at 93.3. So I had my fantasy football draft earlier tonight, and that made me think about different, as I'm drafting players, think about different, think about the players I drafted in the teams they play on and the stadiums they play on and where they played in college. And I started thinking about all the places I've been in, different stadiums I've been in. It made me think, heck, we're coming up on high school football started last week. You got college football starting this weekend. You got NFL football starting next weekend. You got the NBA firing up in about a month. The NHL also in about 3 weeks or so. You got a lot of big major sports kicking in gear right now, all of them in stadiums or facilities. And as you think about the stadiums or facilities you go to watch a sporting event, every one of them has a different flair. Every one of them has a different selling point. And I've had so many good and so many bad experiences in stadiums, and I wanted to open the phones and ask you, think about the stadiums you've gone to for events, sporting events. It doesn't have to be here in Dallas. Could have been another city. What are the ones that you stick out to you and you remember as really good experiences, really good stadiums, really cool events, really cool places? And what are the ones that stick out as really a dumpster fire? I'd like to hear from you. Tell me your story about a stadium experience that you've had. My name is Jeff. It's Westside Jeff, and for Chris Crock, my number is 800-288-9227, 800-288-WBAP. One of my best experiences was last fall and then 3 years ago at Neyland Stadium in Knoxville, Tennessee. I'll tell you about that in about give me 4 minutes, I'll tell you that. But I want to get to Rick in Bartonville. Rick in Bartonville, thank you for listening and thank you for calling in. Tell me about your experience that sticks out.
Thanks for having me, man. Okay,
you're welcome,
experience. Man. So I'm more of a baseball guy. I mean, I've been to the Rose Bowl, but I also saw Billy Graham in the Rose Bowl, too. It's a great place. but I'm more of a baseball guy. I've been to every stadium except for 4. I'll spare you the details. But my number one most incredible experience was 9/11. They were going to cancel the World Series. And I found myself, they actually went ahead with the sport. They went ahead and played baseball after 9/11. And it's the Yankees playing the Diamondbacks at the Bob. They used to, I think it's called Chase Field now. But I'm sitting, if you can imagine, if you draw a line between second base and home, and straight up, I was at the very top row, not the best seat in the world, but they were singing the national anthem, and off in the distance, I see this stealth bomber coming straight at me, and it was coming directly straight out of center field. I mean, I got goosebumps just talking about, tears in my eyes. It was one of those times when America was united, and here comes the biggest, giantest stealth bomber you've ever seen in your life, right at the apex of the national anthem, comes flying right over my head. I'm just crying like a little schoolgirl.
Was that the World Series?
That was the World Series. The Yankees went 7 games. I was at game 1, 2, and 7. Great. I've been to a ton of great ballparks now. I just did a baseball tour for my 35th anniversary with my wife, and some friends of ours decided to come along with us. And we hit 7 ballparks. And we made a list of all the criteria that we were going to judge the ballparks by. Best hot dog, best ice cream, the best curb appeal, best view from the stadium. And so really there's a different flavor in every ballpark from my experience. But my worst experience ever, and I don't want to cast a negative light on any ball teams, but it was late. It was postseason, and it was October, and I was in the south side of Chicago, and it was hailing, and the wind was howling, and it didn't matter how thick your jacket was, you about froze to death for that ball game.
Which ballpark? Cubs?
That was the south side. That was the White Sox.
I didn't know the White Sox had a team. They didn't either.
You know what? They do. But the best part about it was I had a buddy that whose dad lived in Chicago, and I took him to the game. I'd never met him before, but you know what? That's a dumb story. I'll spare you the details.
So, Rick, you started to say you hit a lot of ballparks, and you had 7 criteria to judge the best stadiums. And it was best hot dog, best this, best. Go through the criteria and tell me which stadiums lived up to that. Which one had the best hot dog?
Okay. You know what? I think the best hot dog is at there's a couple of them, but I think the best hot dog is at Ranger Stadium. Mm-hmm. It's called the Boomstick. It's 2 feet long. You got to share it with a friend, or it literally could kill you. It's the most flavorful. The bread is amazing. The hot dog it's an all beef dog. It's a monster. You can't walk through the stadium because they literally give you a little suitcase to hold it in. Have you ever heard of it?
No.
If you get to Texas, go to a Ranger game and go out to center field on the second level. It's called the Boomstick. And anybody listening to this show has been to that ballpark, has seen people walking around, and people's jaws just drop when they take.
With the suitcase carrying the hot dog. How much is it?
Oh, I don't even. You don't feel like it. You don't. When you have an airplane, you don't complain about fuel prices. And when you're at the ball game, you don't complain about hot dog prices.
Tell me your other criteria and great experiences at other ballparks.
Okay, so we all agreed there was 4 of us, and I think the best view from inside the ballpark out of the ballpark is Pirate Stadium with the bridges off in the distance and the river.
Yeah,
absolutely beautiful. But I think one view that rivals that would be I think it's still called AT&T Park. I'm not sure. In San Francisco, I don't really like going to San Francisco anymore these days. But boy, what a great experience! 10 years ago.
I agree with that.
Beautiful ballpark.
You're looking right on San Francisco and the harbor and the bay, and you depending on where you are, sometimes you can see the Golden Gate Bridge there.
Yeah, they're obviously, I don't want to beat the drum with redundancy, but when you think about the history of baseball, you think about Wrigley and Fenway and the old Yankees ballpark. I mean, I got goosebumps just talking about the history of baseball, being in those stadiums, thinking about all the people who sat in those seats,
Oh, amazing. What are the other criteria you used?
Okay, ice cream. I gotta find. I don't know if I can tell the story or not. You cut me off if it's not appropriate.
Clean it up.
I'll keep it clean. Not everybody can handle ice cream. Some people get a stomachache. So we were at a ballpark, and a lot of times we got ice cream before we got the hot dog, just because we know how to party, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, so, absolutely.
David we got ice cream, and then about the third inning, he disappeared. And I go, man, where's David? And his wife said, well, I think maybe the ice cream got him. And that's not what happened. Actually, he showed up with a root beer float a few minutes later. I said, the ice cream didn't get him. He got the ice cream. Anyway, it was great. Hey, can we?
Where was the best ice cream?
I think I'm going to say Brewers up in Wisconsin. Milwaukee Brewers had the best ice cream. Yeah, and I think it's because of the root beer. They have, if you can only get this root beer, it's called Killebrew. He's a ball player, actually. Killebrew root beer, you can't get it anywhere except for that. There's a couple states up there you can get the best root beer, which, if you're a root beer float guy, you know what I'm talking about.
Yep. Cool stories, Rick. Thank you for calling, and thank you for being part of the show. I appreciate that. I love hearing that, so thank you for calling.
Hey, thanks for having me. Awesome. Well, we'll talk to you soon.
You got it, brother. Thank you. That was Rick from Bartonville. We're talking about some of the best experiences you've ever had. Best sports stadium experience. And the worst sports stadium experience. What is it? My name's Jeff. It's Westside Jeff. Leaves a couple open phone lines. 800-288-9227. 800-288-WBAP. I told you I'd tell you the story about Neyland Stadium in Knoxville. And something they do there that you don't see almost anywhere else. And I said to somebody, how can they get away with that? And somebody said, here's the answer. I'll tell you what that is in about 4 minutes. My name's Jeff. It's Westside Jeff in for Chris Kroc on News Talk 820 WBAP and now on FM and 93.3. I appreciate Rick from Bartonville calling, sharing the stories about some good stadium experiences. I've heard of stories like that. He said a group of them decided to visit all the different ballparks, baseball parks, and I get it, understand it. Not something I would love to do, but I find that intriguing for people to have a bucket list, and the bucket list is hit every stadium at least once. I've seen stories like that, and I think they're fascinating. And to his point, every stadium has a different flavor, a different feel, a different temperature of the room, so to speak. Westside Jeff in for Chris Kroc as we enter college football season, the NFL season, NBA season, NHL season coming up. Every stadium, every city you go to has a different vibe. And every stadium you go to has a different vibe. And as sports stadiums now are competing more than ever before with the television screen and trying to get people to come to their facilities to watch the games, they have to think out of the box. They have to do something different to make and create an entertainment value that is better than sitting at home in your most comfortable furniture with a bathroom right next to you and a lot cheaper food and beverage to get you out of the home. I've had some really cool experiences in my life with stadiums, and I've had some that weren't cool at all. So I ask you, what are the best sports stadium experiences you've had? And what are the really bad stadium experiences you've had? I've had several. I told you I'd tell you my best one was Neyland Stadium up in Knoxville, Tennessee. You know what? Let me hold that for a second. I want to get to one of our callers, Kim from Waxahachie. Kim, you've been on hold for a few minutes. I don't want to keep you on hold too long. Thanks for calling. You're talking to Westside Jeff on the Chris Kroc Show. Tell me about your experience.
Yeah, yes, sir. Quite a long time ago when the University of Houston had their first soccer game or soccer practice, I love soccer, and I was the only person in the stadium, so I was there watching the soccer game, and I was the only person there watching the game, so it was quite an experience.
You're the only one there.
I was the only one there.
And that was a pretty good experience, huh?
Yeah.
Kim, thanks for listening. Anything else you want to add to that?
Yes, I believe that adults need to start their own soccer teams locally and have fun. Don't just let the kids do it and have fun.
There you go. Kim, thanks for listening and thanks for calling. I appreciate it. Let's go to Trey in Duncanville. Trey, thanks for listening. Tell me about your experience.
Well, I didn't go to school there, but I've always been a huge Notre Dame fan. My grandfather got me brainwashed. And
that's on my bucket list.
He took me to the 71 Cotton Bowl when they played Texas in the rematch. I had one of the best times. I had an all-access pass and credentials. I got to see the players, the cheerleaders, the band. I got to see the Leprechaun. And after the game, we got to meet the players, and I got a game signed football from Coach Eric Parsegian. It was personalized, and then on the way out of the locker room, the equipment manager said, "Hey, kid, have this." It was a game used helmet, so I've loved Notre Dame ever since.
Was this in South Bend?
No, sir. It was at the Cotton Bowl here in Dallas in 1971 when I was. And then I did go to a game in South Bend. My grandfather, he passed away in the spring of that year, and so I vowed to get him a piece of the turf, and I did. I brought a couple of Ziploc bags, and I snuck them. I got them. It was really cold, and I put them in my coat when no one was looking. All the kids were charged in the field, and I charged with them. So it was a mass of humanity. So this is my moment. So I grabbed it. I filled up a couple of bags of the grass in the Ziploc bags, and I put one on my grandfather's grave, and I got a little patch of it in my backyard. And when I passed, I went on my grave. And I'll tell you a bad experience I had at the Cotton Bowl in '79. It was the Ice Bowl with Joe Montana, the chicken noodle soup, and it was so cold.
Oh, yeah.
It was very, very cold. But the worst experience I had was in Stillwater, Oklahoma. I graduated from Texas Tech, and we had a road trip up there. And it was like right around the Thanksgiving holidays. And the people were really nice to us, but gosh, it was so cold. And they had those metal aluminum seats. They weren't individual, but the benches. And it was so cold. It was like below freezing, and the wind was blowing probably 20, 30 miles an hour. And it wasn't, thank goodness, there wasn't any ice or snow, but it was just, sunshine and everything. But it was so windy, and it was like sitting on like a big iceberg or something. But we did have fun after the game. We went to a place called Stillwater Eskimo Joe's, which is not too far from the stadium. It was real fun. It's a sports bar and stuff. They had all kinds of fun stuff. So
That's
awesome. It was kind of a mixed blessing. But like I say, if you want to go see the Oklahoma State game, don't go toward the end of the season. Go to the first part. I just didn't know
where it's warmer.
Well, yes, sir, because I just didn't know how cold November could be until I went to Stillwater.
Yeah, I get it. Trey, thanks for listening. Thanks for calling. I appreciate it very much. I promise.
You have a blessed day. Enjoy your summer.
You too. Yeah, I promised a story about Neyland Stadium up in Knoxville. Something they do there that I've never experienced before that I'm surprised they do. Both years we went into Knoxville, watched a game, and the University of Tennessee Volunteers play the Georgia Bulldogs. They one of the things they do at the pregame festivities is the first thing they do is they introduce a pastor, and the pastor does the invocation. And people stand, they take off their hats, and it's about a 1.5-minute invocation. And the first time I experienced that, I kept my eyes wide open. I pulled out my phone and started videotaping the stadium, looking for anybody who was down on that. Because you try that in a lot of other stadiums, and holy hell will break loose with the separation of church and state. And I asked somebody about it, and they said, "Jeff, it's Bible Baptist country. This happens in Bible Baptist country." And I'm like, it don't happen up in Columbus, Ohio, or in Indiana University, or State College in Penn State, or for God's sakes, the Big House in Michigan. That stuff doesn't happen. Yeah, they say the prayer in Tennessee. Great experience, though.